Great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Children Education Policy and Accountability Committee. I'm Councillor Rowbottom, I'm the chair, and we will go around and introduce everyone shortly, but just the usual few housekeeping points before we begin. So this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel, and so by participating you are consenting to being recorded. If the fire alarm sounds either continuously or intermittently, there are exits over there, and maybe there. That one, just that one. Okay, that's good. I'm glad you're here. So when we go round, we will do a round of introductions, but when you're speaking, just remember to quickly land who you are, just in case people are kind of joining on and off online. So first item, apologies for absence. I haven't received any formally, although possibly Councillor Campbell-Simon has a conflict, so to be confirmed. And Nadia Taylor is joining us online, so great to have you, Nadia. Thank you for making the time. Number 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? No, none. Great. Item 3, minutes. Do members agree the minutes of the meeting held in January as an accurate record? Agree? Lovely, brilliant, thank you very much. So we'll just whip around and say who we are, if that's okay. Perhaps I can start with you, Georgina, if that's okay. Thank you.
Georgina Herry, Head of School Effectiveness.
Sorry, Peter Haylock, Director of Education and Send.
And Jackie McShannon, Executive Director of People and Director of Children's Services. Good evening.
Sarah Sanderson, Interim Operational Director, Children and Young People Services.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Alex Sanderson, I'm the Deputy Leader.
Nandini Ganesh, Co-op Parents Active. And my name is Councillor Darrell Brown, I'm the Deputy Mayor. Nice to see you all tonight.
I'm Mercy Ume, a chair for licensing as well as education panel, sitting on education panel. Thanks.
Councillor Alia Afzal Khan, Councillor for Palace and Hurlingham Ward and the opposition representative on the committee. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Nadia, do you want to just, if you can, just say a couple of words about your expertise?
Yes, yes, good evening, and thank you so much for allowing me to attend online. My name is...
There's 1 second. It might not be and probably isn't your end. Let's just check that. If we have... Oh, wow, sorry, it's a bit amateur disco in here.
I can hear you
liked it.
very well, but I don't know if you can hear me.
No? Okay, so Nadia, we've got a bit of a technical issue. What I'm going to do is say, and I know this is a bit laggardly, but if you have questions, if you can maybe email Debbie with them, not just as and when it comes up, just ping her a quick email. I know it's a bit of a weird medium, but if you ping a quick email, we'll make sure Debbie and I to liaise and make sure that we get all of your questions heard. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Peter Haylock for the first item on family hubs.
So I think you've had the presentation and the information through in terms of our family hubs and how things are progressing. So really enjoy it's just an opportunity if people got any questions, etc., to kind of go from there. So just to highlight a couple of the key things that we've seen in terms of developments and improvements, etc. I won't go through the presentation now, I'll just use some of the data and then I will just highlight some things. If anyone's got any questions, obviously just jump in. So first thing to say is we're really pleased with how the family hubs have progressed in the first 2 years. Firstly, registrations have significantly increased, which is exactly what we want. So we've gone from 371 in 2023-24 to 961 in 24-25, which has led to the number of children that have been seen has doubled pretty much from 5,500 to 10,200. So we're really pleased. That's exactly what we want to be doing, is seeing as many young people as possible. The number of individual families, as you can see, at the different centres is increasing as well, which is exactly what we want. So we've seen an increase in Old Oak, up by over 1,000, an increase at Tudor Rose by a similar sort of number, and also an increase in Stephen Wiltshire Centre from 540 to 680. And similarly, a smaller increase at Randolph Beresford Children's Centre as well. So overall, we're seeing an increase across the board in terms of our total number of families, etc., which is really, really pleasing. In terms of other kind of key things, in terms of what we're seeing, the key with the family hubs is always to constantly evolve and to develop. So we're always looking to improve the quality of the services that are provided, look to change things, look to develop, look at the services that are running well from the centres, where we're seeing lots of opportunities for young people and children and so on, and their families. And then where we want to see changes, then we'll kind of make those quite rapidly, etc. So I think where we've asked for feedback, we've been really pleased with the positive feedback that's come from the evaluations. So 100% of families and parents, carers feel welcome at all of the hubs. 97% feel that their needs were really well met. 70% are aware of the services, which obviously we'd like to kind of improve, etc. And then you've got good numbers of people that are accessing quite regular, large numbers of sessions, or 9 or more sessions, which is really, really positive. And I think one of the key things there is 25% of visitors are new to the families, which is good. So that's starting to kind of get that increase in different people becoming involved. We've got over 125 organisations that are part of the service networks, and 87 of those are now running from the hub. So we've really managed to diversify the kind of provision over the first year of inception, and really improved what's in place, really. And so we're really pleased. I think you all know that we have the three hubs in place. We have the Old Oak up in the north, Tudor Rose in Fulham, and Stephen Wiltshire as our specialist hub, sort of in the central part of the local authority. Key thing really is obviously the essential element is that all residents are welcome. So there's no specific direct towards any particular group, etc. So we're kind of clear in terms of the opportunities that are there, ensuring that the specialist hub is able to kind of offer that and offer some hub services from the other 2 hubs as well. Obviously, the children's centre elements are really strong in terms of learn and play, and those sorts of elements around baby massage, breastfeeding support and health visitors, etc. So we're really pleased that we're able to kind of continue to develop and enhance those types of services. We're always looking for improvements. One of the key areas is how we develop the youth services, or the kind of teenage services, and looking at how we continue to engage those. And we're working with the Youth Council to look at how that's developed, as well as making sure that we've got good publicity around the hubs in terms of the family information service, everything that's on the local offer. And we know that we've got some good kind of progress in terms of how that's being accessed as well. So that was the kind of main things, just to update people in terms of the family hubs. Obviously, it's a key across children's priority to continue to develop those, and kind of go from there, really. So open to any questions from colleagues.
I'm very impressed by all this hard work, and the hubs are fantastic. Just wondering if these hubs were inundated by families, is there a system in place that will control the amount of attendees, or is there a system in place? Thank you.
So we'd always like to make sure everyone's got access, but we have basic booking systems. The same, I guess, if you've got a session that's running at the gym for yoga or whatever it might be, we have a similar type booking system, so the parents can book in and make sure that they are getting the services that they need. One of the key things, obviously, is that we like people to make referrals into us so that we can get to, I don't want to say the right parents, but I think you know what I mean, the parents that are potentially sometimes harder to contact or harder to reach, so that we're getting the referrals come in, and then we'll support them with kind of the booking systems and stuff like that, and making sure that they've got access, and then go from there, really.
Great. Councillor Ume.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. I think I'm so glad that we have opened 3 new centers, and I'm glad that people are enjoying it. My question is, how do we manage the case management of information, irrespective of making sure that other data are not missed in case of people that want into housing and all that, and so how do you do the service that everyone is making sure that all our residents that attend that are seen to?
So I think the key is obviously the link in with, for example, with Sarah's services through the front door. So the family hub can act as an access point. When the team meet with people who come in, they'll not assess, that's the wrong description, but they'll review what potential services could be a possibility. So with, for example, housing, the housing officers run sessions from the hubs, so they'll be available to have those conversations, and we can refer in the right people to the right different services. If we feel, for example, we work closely with the early help team, so if we feel that a referral comes in and actually the family hub is not quite best placed to take on that referral, obviously we would then contact the team and work out who's best to kind of pick that up, whether it be through the ICAP front door or whether it be through early help or whatever it might be. So the team meet regularly as a wider multidisciplinary group, and then particular cases can be discussed in that scenario, and the family hubs will sort of act as a potential opening for that.
And also just to add on, Councillor, and I may be slightly misunderstanding your question, but in terms of evolving services to meet needs, there are a range of consultation forums. Some are very regular with Family Voice. The services on offer are, in terms of thinking about what residents want, have been co-produced with residents, and there's a standing group of people who commit to that, and individual surveys, and generally it's very dynamic, the offers. So actually what was being offered 2 years ago has evolved over the last 2 years and will continue to grow and change as we understand needs, and they do change. So some things are popular at some stage and maybe other demands increase. So we aim to be responsive to need.
Great. Oh, God. Let's go Nandini first. So I did
I don't know whether you'll have to repeat your answer, but just wondering, how do you count the registration? Is it somebody just registering themselves and they're counted as using the family hub? Or like, for example, we may run sessions there. We do run sessions in SWC and people just drop in. Even we don't know who's going to be dropping in at points. So would they then be counted as using the family hub, or is it like case management where you're actually managing cases and then you're counting them as using the family hubs?
So I think it's a bit of a mix. So the key registrations are those that come through the Power app, which is the kind of the data system. It's not my area of expertise, I'll be honest, where people actually have formally registered or have had support to formally register with the hub. And that would be if they're going to use a learn and play centre, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess that we're probably not quite capturing everyone, if I'm honest, who's actually entered or been to the family hub. So as you say, so for example, the session that I attended with Parents Active, we won't necessarily have recorded all of those people as coming to the family hub, even though they obviously did come to the family hub because we met them there. So what we're looking at is those that have registered and have sort of used let's call it a formal service rather than someone who's using the hub. But we're always keen to create those opportunities to give people access. They find out where it is, and then, oh right, we can come here, and then that starts to build that opportunity for sort of more formal registrations, etc.
Yeah, okay. I mean, do you then track? Is it like drop in, get advice, like drop in to say substance misuse, get advice, go away, or is it like I don't know if counselors already asked this question, but robust case management? So they come in again. So you're actually tracking the success of family hubs as in the outcome. They're getting an outcome from it.
So it's a bit of a mix. So it would, and again, it would depend on where the service or the need of the customer, let's say, or the resident, where things to develop to. So in short, the purpose always is to try and get people the support as early as possible, so that they don't need additional services. So that would be the biggest success measure. That's quite hard to measure, but that's essentially the purpose. So I think, yeah, it's quite hard to track it, and in a way, it hasn't really probably been running long enough to be able to give us that level of data. But yeah, the key is obviously if anyone is picked up and requires more complex support, that's when we'll obviously bring in the multidisciplinary team and have that kind of more detailed discussion, and then go from there, really.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take hands in the order I saw them. So I'm going to go to Councillor Ali Afzal Khan, and then I'll go to Marie, if that's all right, on the 1, 2. Thank you.
Hi. Well, this is a fantastic mix of services, and I'm just looking at all the services that are offered. Not all services are offered at the hub at the same time. It's a rota, isn't it? There are dedicated days that some services are there and other services are there on different days. Is there an online rota that is published so that residents can look up which day which services are available so they can effectively use the services? That was my first question. And the second question was about the Power App. It seems like a great idea, but I don't quite understand what the Power App does.
I'll take the second question first. Essentially, the Power App just collects the person's information, like registration details, and then it gives it that information to be able to work out where the sort of referrals, etc., need to go to in terms of the different teams. In terms of the timetable, yes, it's a bit like a child's school timetable in a way, if you look at the board, and it does adapt and change. But the team have got some physical copies. They have obviously copies in the hub, and I believe, I'm not sure of the exact location of it. I can find that out after the meeting, but there is an online timetable that gets updated when things change. So it'll be things like 9 o'clock Monday mornings, learn and play, 5 o'clock yoga or whatever it might be, and you'll have different sessions at different times running throughout the week. It might be that on a Thursday, early help will be running there, and then on a Friday, the housing team will be in the same room. It just, things will develop and change throughout the week.
Great, Marie. Do you say your question? I'll briefly repeat it so that Nadia at home can hear it into the mics. But go for it. You go for it, and then I'll relay it afterwards. Oh yeah. Do you want to say it into this one, Marie? That makes more sense.
It's Marie Thomas, a resident of Hammersmith and Fulham, and I call myself Good Trouble, like John Lewis said to his parents. It's good to have a hub service, yes. My concern about the hub, it's not advertised properly. It is among a small group of people. I live on an estate. We get a monthly letter from the housing department. The hub is never in there. So we don't know, anybody with housing can go into any of the hubs to have any questions. You've got it there, but nobody knows about it. So my concern is about communication, sharing the good news, which you might have among yourselves, but not with the residents of Hammersmith and Fulham. Bonito and I, we are part of the resident involvement in housing. We've never heard the hub mentioning any of our forums. So it's there. Councillor, Deputy Leader, take it up. Right? So this is what we need to do.
Got it.
Communicate.
Can we put that as an action, Debbie, to make sure that we relay that to our comms team so that all comms channels we've got can have it advertised?
Yes.
Is that all right, Marie?
That's all right.
Maybe I'll ping you, loop you in, so that if you can think of any other things from other organisations that land that might need it listing, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll make sure it's in them all if we publish them.
Councillor, sorry, just
Sure.
So I kind of partly agree and partly disagree, if that's okay. So I think we've obviously increased the number of users quite significantly, which is what we wanted, but we were obviously always looking to get it out further. So, for example, any email you receive from anyone in Children's Services, it advertises the hub at the bottom. And we have done some physical marketing, which doesn't do that well these days, to be honest, in terms of people looking at posters and leaflets, etc. And we've done quite a lot of electronic marketing as well. And it does go out as part, anyone who's got any access to any H&F news should see some information about the hubs quite regularly coming through. But if it hasn't landed, then obviously that's where I agree that we need to obviously pick up and work out why it's not getting to the residents' associations or whoever that might be, and then we can pick that up as part of the team.
Thank you very much for listening, and also let's remember to walk the talk.
Anita, did you want to say something as well? Do you want to use this one's also free, and then Debbie doesn't need to move this one here.
Thank you for giving me a chance to ask my question or my comments. I'm Benito. I have to agree with my colleague. I'm few years in resident meetings, but we never heard about the hubs. We hear about it from outside. I think what we should do, Marie, we should invite them to one of the meetings. They give us maybe a full explanation what are the hubs and what you are doing. Now, to be honest with you, I can't understand what is going on, but is that including, when you say the referral, is that including children who expelled from schools? Do you have a program for that?
So the hubs, the hubs don't provide the education provision for the children who may be excluded from school. We actually have a very, very small number of children that are excluded from school. So it's something like between 5 or 10 per term. So it's a very small number. And their provision is provided at the Oat Academy Trust, which is in Finley Street at the Bridge Academy. So that is an alternative provision which is provided there. The Family Hub can support their family for certain. At the moment, as I said, as part of my presentation, it's quite shifted towards the younger years and early years, and we are looking to develop the youth provision, etc. But it may well be that a better provision would be for something like a youth club or something like that, which would provide more maybe what they need. But it's definitely something that we're looking to develop, but it's not their education provision.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Benito. Do you want to come in, Jackie?
Sorry, I would just like to invite our two residents' representatives to visit Tudor Rose, and we can give them a tour.
Great. Because I think it's a particular, there's a whole suite of services, and it's about as much about exactly what it is providing for in the age range and everything as segueing over to other services as well. So I think that could be helpful. That's great. Thank you. We've had Councillor Sanderson.
Thanks. Just to say, obviously, we have got very targeted ads. So I absolutely take your point about the housing newsletter, and we can make sure it's included in there. What we've really tried to prioritise is making sure that we're hitting families and going out to where they are. So housing absolutely could be one that's included. Absolutely, absolutely. I think sadly we have got fewer families in our housing than we'd like them to have, which is why we've had targeted ads around GPs, schools, trying to make sure that they're in areas where we know there are going to be families and children. So that's why you might not have seen some of it, but I think it's a really good point. And on the on the TRA meeting, so Old Oak, we've had a really constant presence at that TRA meeting, making sure that family hubs are there. I think we've been at 3 of the last TRAs. And fairly constant kind of line of communication to explain what's going on, what activities are there. And also because this is meant to be iterative and getting feedback from the community, it means that we've been able to shape the offer, which almost all residents are really pleased with now from the feedback that we get. So we have had a boom in numbers because we've had the very targeted ads, but really, really welcome any thoughts about how we can promote it further, because we're really proud of this. We think it's a really, really good offer. Yeah. The whole vision for this was taking services out into the heart of the communities, and I think that's what we've really done. We're trying to make sure that everyone knows about it. Feels really important. So really happy to go to TRAs, really happy to try and advertise it anywhere we can, but also please do come and visit, because word of mouth is so much more powerful than anything we can put in a newsletter. So come and see how brilliant it is, and we'd love to see you there. Good. I know, I've seen you there. Well, come and wear the t-shirt more often. That'd be lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Any other? Do you know what? I just want to make sure. Oh, sorry, Nandini. And just before I call you, Nandini, have we got anything from Nadia? Just wanted to say, Nadia, we will keep checking. So do no pressure, but ping stuff across as and when. Thank you, Nandini.
Thank you. I'm listening.
No, I just want to ask, Marie, are you in Tudor Rose Association?
No, I'm Lancaster Court.
Opposite.
There's no association there's no resident association in Fulham Court, so yeah, and that's very sad.
Okay. No, the reason why I'm asking is we have family voices, and family voices, I think we have a parents active representative, but do you have representation from all the resident associations and every other cohort? How successful is family voices? Because they should be propagating, they should be more well attended.
So the Family Voices has been really successful in terms of bringing residents involved. I couldn't tell you exactly who the members are, but we can pick that up and share that after the meeting.
Great. I'm going to withhold I had a couple of things, but actually I just want to make sure that we give enough time to the other items. So is there any other final queries from anyone? Good. Okay. They're a great thing. I actually, do you know what? I'm going to indulge myself on the one question. I just, at the very beginning, Peter, when it's talking about when you've got the kind of numbers 23, 24 and 24, 25, and I actually just wanted to make sure I'd fully understood what you mean, what the distinctions are between the top and the bottom graph between registrations, children seen, and number of individual families. And in particular, so you've got like a tripling in number at the top of registrations, and this might just be that you had a really good attendance off the bat, 23, 24. When you're looking at the individual's family data, it kind of is a little, or like a significant, but relatively less increase from one year to next. So just if you could give some colour to those numbers, it'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so that links to the Power App and getting it on board. So that's where we've managed to form this. I suppose links to Nandini's comment about where have we captured everybody. So obviously with the registrations are the people who've been formally kind of captured and are registered on the system, which is 961.
Based on information we have anyway, spell it out for a real layman?
So that's where people have registered onto the Power App. So we've collected their kind of formal information, and they've been accessing a service, and then that would link to of that 961 registrations. That leads to a number of children seen as being around 10,000, which is obviously a lot more. So we've got some people who are being seen but are not necessarily registered on the Power App, if that makes sense. And then the next bit is the kind of links into the number of individual families that are being seen at the different centres. Some of those will be on the Power App and will have been registered, and others we're still collating and collecting their information.
I'm going to be honest, I still don't understand that, because, so how are that's a massive, so registrations are people on the app versus people who are coming. I would get that there'll be a discrepancy, but such a big discrepancy. Is that how people are booking, or are they just dropping into?
I think it's the totals seen, if that makes sense. So you've got your registrations and then total. And I'll need to, maybe I'll take that away and get the team to.
It would just be good to have a key, because it's like basically the curiosity when you're looking at these kind of things is like, who's taking them up and what's the increase, and are we making sure we're finding more people all the time? And I'm not sure. I'm sure it means something to. Let
me pick that up and come back to you, Councillor.
That would be great, because I think that would be really illuminating. Great, thank you very much. Yeah, go for it, Nadia, you want to comment?
I mean, SWC has been in existence for a long time. So I think the numbers compared to Old Oak and Tudor Roads, which has just been set up, and SWC is only 541, 686. Shouldn't it also increase quite significantly?
So bear in mind that these were running as children's centres previously, so they're not new in that sense. They've been enhanced as a family hub from what they were previously. So people were accessing services from there, like there's the learn and plays, etc., and some of the other provisions. But what's happened is, by the development of the family hubs, those services have been enhanced. So they're not.
So you're also calculating the old existing services.
No, it wouldn't necessarily have the old people. Councillor, do you want to come in?
I was just going to say, I appreciate this might be a slightly more detailed conversation than we want to have right now. So should we come back with clarity of numbers, and also maybe sharing the timetable so people can break that as well?
We can do that.
Because that is all on the council website. So making sure that that's shareable along with the numbers. Cool. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 5 is the Virtual School Annual Report, and I'm going to hand over to Sarah Sanderson.
I'm sharing this report on behalf of Amelia Steele, the virtual school head, who's not able to be here today, who usually presents this report, which has also been shared at our corporate parenting board. So this is the report which covers the period, the academic year 23-24, but obviously covers more holistically the work of the virtual school and the provision of education support to children in care. And as corporate parents, we obviously have a duty to provide the best possible educational opportunities and enrichment opportunities for our cared for children, because that can be life-changing, particularly for children who've experienced trauma and instability. Just to remind everybody that the virtual school isn't a physical school building. It's a group of professionals who work to support, promote the educational outcomes and attainments of our children in care. We also support, so the offer of the virtual school has been extended to support and give advice to children with a social worker, so children with social care involvement. That's not a statutory function, so they don't have an allocated virtual school teacher like our cared for children, but it's an advice and support and training and development and learning for schools and professionals involved. As you can see on that, our virtual school head has produced a young person friendly summary, which I think captures really clearly so that our children can understand what they have been achieving in their education, what we set out to offer to them. The cohorts in the various different age brackets, so Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, very, very small numbers. So the statistical relevance, it's difficult to draw those comparisons because of the numbers, and also because we don't want to identify individual children in such small cohorts. So when I go through, you'll see that there's more detail on Key Stage 4, where there's a broader cohort than the smaller numbers of children. But broadly, we know our virtual school and ourselves as corporate parents are aspirational for our children in terms of their educational outcomes, and across the different, from early years through to Key Stage 4, Key Stage 5 and on to higher education, we're able to see demonstrable progress for our children and young people whose needs are not always straightforward. So I'll just move on from the young person's summary, because you can see that there in terms of the profile of our looked after children, which is broadly in line with the national picture. So we know that children in care nationally are twice as likely to have identified additional learning needs and support needs. And that's likewise for our cohort here, where 40% had identified needs, and you can see that broken down on the slide, so I won't go through the percentages for you in terms of those who have EHCPs who are being assessed, etc. But what I will say is that it is a significant proportion, and that impacts on some of the academic achievements for our children and young people who are all making demonstrable progress. But what we do is we have very close collaboration with with a whole range of services designed to support those additional needs, including monthly meetings with our senior EHC coordinator, dedicated educational psychology support, and support for children who are in education outside of our borough. As you can see in the presentation, a third of the schools that we work with for children in care are in the borough. The remainder are outside. The majority are schools that have been rated good or outstanding. Very small number that requires improvement, and there's strong oversight from our virtual school head and our virtual school team. Most of those schools, the children were already at the school at the time they became looked after, or at the time the rating dropped, and they've remained there to support their stability in terms of their education. In terms of, I'll move on to, all of our children have personal education plans, which are led by the allocated virtual school teacher. Obviously, the presentation highlights there that there's really positive feedback from Ofsted about the quality of those plans, not just the completion rates, which you can see are really high, almost 100% within the timeframes. The very small number where that's not the case, it's because it's been tailored. The timing of those plans has been tailored to children's individual needs, and the virtual school head has had oversight of that. They're written in very child-focused language, looking at their needs and making clear what their targets are. They're QA'd, and our virtual school head has developed a PEP, personal education plan toolkit, to support in everybody's understanding of the statutory responsibilities around those education plans. And then moving on to the educational outcomes, as I said, in the early years, there's very small numbers, so we haven't reported on those here to protect the identities of those children, but can confirm that all of those have made progress from their starting point. Again, for Key Stage 1, at the end of Year 2, there's a small cohort limiting the statistical significance, but most of the children, more children than national average were meeting the expectations in maths, English and science than the national average, and making expected progress. At Key Stage 2, all children were making progress in line with their learning needs, and again, the numbers are so small not to report on there. You can see for yourself in the presentation the outcomes for those at Key Stage 4, who are actually a complex cohort with a range of needs, and some of whom weren't on a GCSE pathway, had alternative pathways. There's a number of children in that cohort who are unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and undertaking ESOL qualifications. At Key Stage 5, nearly half the cohort were unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and engaged with ESOL. And just what isn't on the PowerPoint, I mean, the slides there show that actually our children are achieving beyond the national average for cared for, looked after children, and year-on-year progress. It is difficult because of the very small numbers to draw those conclusions. So then, there can be variations depending on the year. And what isn't on the PowerPoint here is that also we've had 4 students graduate from university in August 24 in journalism, fashion, social work and data So that's a whole range of careers there. We have 27 young care experienced young people currently in higher education, studying again a range of courses. Going back to our Key Stage 4, what I should have said is all those children who undertook those courses at Key Stage 4 have secured post-16 placements, many of them pursuing vocational routes in line with their aspirations and their skills. And then from achievement, academic achievement is just part of the picture. Our enrichment and the life chances and opportunities we're committed to giving our cared for and care experienced young people can be evidenced really strongly in our broad enrichment programme, which actually supports future career pathways, lifelong hobbies and talents and interests, as well as personal growth and fostering connections and cultural experiences, which many of our children wouldn't have the opportunity for without this full range of programs, which I can say personally, I've had the privilege to participate in alongside some of our staff and our young people. Really is our leaders and our managers and our practitioners and our range of professionals do get the opportunity to be part of this enrichment activity alongside our young people, which supports our embedded participation culture and supports us getting to know our cared for children and getting to understand how we change our system and how we deliver our services in line with their feedback. So again, I'm not going to list the various things that are here as in our enrichment programme, but we've been successful again in working with John Lyons as part of to support the continued delivery of such a diverse enrichment programme, which also supports with our children's life skills, teamwork, independent skills, etc. You can always see the beautiful pictures of those. And then, as I touched on earlier, it's not just our virtual school. The responsibilities for our virtual school have extended beyond our cared for children. It's a very limited role with a broad reach in terms of supporting all children with a social worker. So we've had to think in a really targeted way about how we do that. And I think one of the key achievements there has been the comprehensive training and development offer, which is being further expanded to now look at targeted groups of professionals and some opportunities for some carers and parents to be involved in those. But again, there's a whole range of our advisory teacher for children with a social worker. There's a whole range of activity they have been involved in, which is there on the slide, but really a primary focus on attendance and the work in Peter. It works across Peter's service to make sure that we're all following the same goal of having children in school, attending regularly and maximising those opportunities. In terms, I'm rattling through because I know you've got the broader education picture to come as well. So the priorities for this current year that we are in is to continue to enhance that collaboration across services, to promote the attendance, to reduce exclusions and look at enhanced support as part of that, and to continue to build on the success of the enrichment activities and broaden the reach there as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I was actually just having a deeper think as you were talking about the Key Stage 4 slide. And I know that it says there isn't national data, but I just wanted to, you tell me if this is what would be expected, but the grades 4 and 5 above, the percentages of people reaching those, so 3/4 don't. The 13%, or, you know, just over 2/3 don't reach those grades. Is that average? Is that normal?
Sorry, the comparator below is the national looked after data for 22-23. We just don't have the national comparator data for 23-24.
So the top two say is LBHF. I get the bottom one is the national average, so I get it's better. But is that, how do we I don't know, I don't want to say things like wildly outlandish, but it's obviously a lot better than national, but is there anything else we can do to, where I don't know, how
Councillor,
to describe the ambition of those?
So I think the key with this is it's very difficult to compare the data for the virtual school because you've only got a small cohort of people. So it's the equivalent of looking at the data nationally compared to, say, the data of half a class in a school. So I think each child's success is what needs to be celebrated in terms of what the virtual school do. If you compare to so for example, when you look at school data, which is obviously a much bigger number, they like to put a comparison between, say, for example, free school meals in your school versus non-free school meals nationally. And that's not a fair comparison because you're not comparing the same cohort with the same cohort. So if you look at, for example, the national picture for grade 5 is 46%. In H&F, we'll talk about this in a second, we got to 64%, which we're really, really proud of. The performance of the virtual school is exceptional, I think, for the children that go into that cohort. Obviously, they're in that group because of the significant challenges that they faced. In some cases, getting any GCSE result at all is incredible. And I think the key is obviously that you want to have high ambition and you want to see success, but I think the key is to celebrate each of the individual cases.
Got it. Anyone else have any questions on this item? Please.
Thank you.
Yeah, whatever's easier, I can relay it.
Once again, thank you very much. I always raised in our meetings employing local people. I would like to see more apprenticeship offered to local people. Not everybody likes to go for higher education. I think we should coordinate. We are leading in so many things, but still I think apprenticeship is behind. So I would like to see more the education department involved with schools and to look at areas we need people to be locally employed, like the repairs, for example. We need a lot of plumbers, a lot of electricians, and there are people who is good in their hands, but they are not good in education. And that's the point I would like to, how many, my question as well, how many apprenticeship do we offer in the borough?
Before I segue over to Hannah Sabre, I think it's a really valid point, Benito. It's not, so there is there is a developed and ever developing apprenticeship offer, and maybe slightly separate from what the virtual school is, but I will immediately hand over to the team. Anyone wants to take this, Councillor
Thank you.
Sampson?
I think it's a great question and something that isn't not this paper, not this committee, but actually for, so Councillor Qayyum is our cabinet member for skills and enterprise, and he has got apprenticeships within his portfolio. So please do write to him, and I'm sure he can come back to you with all that data because it's obviously really important, something we are thinking about a lot. Through our industrial strategy, we are looking at different pathways for young people through the new pathway bond, looking at different routes for people into employment and jobs and training as well. So there is a whole, sorry? Yes, there are some really, really good apprenticeships in the rounds already. At the risk of taking too much time from this committee, there's a lot on the go, but just a different committee to this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for your question. Councillor Afzal Khan.
Thank you. I'm looking at the enrichment activities, and you're absolutely right. They do have a transformative effect on students. And I was wondering, is there any way that we track these children's uptake of enrichment activities at their schools, the schools that they're actually enrolled in? Because obviously, you know, children will have their parents sign and pay for whatever enrichment activities the school offers. What is their uptake of our CLAs?
In terms of broader activity and enrichment, that will be contained in their individual personal education plans. So that covers the range of their education and their looked after care plans as well. So the idea of our corporate parenting enrichment offer is to offer them that what you would as a family, as a parent, and create that sense of community. So that's in addition, that's different to what they're offered through that. We also fund a range of hobbies, skills, things that they are doing through their schools, whether that's musical instruments, whether that's sports, whether that's martial arts, whatever they happen, reading groups, whatever they happen to be interested in. I think that's you can see that on the young person's summary there. There's a summary there of the range of other activities they're supported, but the targeted enrichment offer really is about us doing that as a corporate parenting and the opportunities we'd all offer to our own children above and beyond what the schools offer.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm also kind of trying to understand that as corporate parents, do we also support them in participating in enrichment activities at their schools?
Absolutely.
I've just missed as well that Councillor Sanderson wanted to come in at some point, possibly on your first.
Well, I was just going to say, absolutely, yes, we do. I mean, obviously, this is an over and above offer that we offer not just for the young people, but also for families and foster families as well, to build that sense of community. So there's a whole load of really lovely activities, like lovely walks to Kew Gardens last year, all sorts of other things that we can build, not just a community of young people, but also foster families and families that we hope continue to foster for us for a long time. But yes, we also support lots and lots of extracurricular activities within schools, help with funding, help with bursaries, anything else that we can do to support those young people as well, because we want the offer to be just as good for all of our looked after young people as we would for any of our children or nieces or nephews or loved ones. So that's what we work really hard to offer. And that's why we offer not just boxing in a railway arch, but also things like skiing, because we live in West London. There are lots of kids going skiing, so why shouldn't our children who are looked after as well?
I was just going to say, Councillor, that it's monitored in a variety of ways. So through the virtual school and the personal education plan, and that the idea of having a virtual school teacher allocated to groups of children is to do that checks and balance. But every child also has an independent reviewing officer who reviews their care plan at least twice a year. And again, they look at exactly that, the uptake of enrichment activities, both at school and extracurricularly.
Thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Just checking in, Debbie, we haven't had any email queues. No, cool. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Any other comments on virtual school reports? Great. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay. Item 6, we have the Education Performance Report for the academic year 23-2. I presume that's 22-23. And Georgina, you've been super patient, so handing over to you to present the report.
Thank you so much. And it's actually 23-24, so that's the outcomes, the education outcomes for then. Make it to proceed, yes. So education outcomes for 23-24. And I'm really pleased to relay the outcomes to you. It's a good news story across the piece, really positive. I'm sure I'll use those words throughout the session. And that's a positive news story at every key stage, which is always a really great thing to have. And it's testament to the work of our leaders, the work of our staff in schools, that despite a challenging environment nationally, they are working, their socks off absolutely hard to ensure great outcomes for our children and that they thrive in the local area. So really sort of thanks to them really in terms of that information. If we start with the early years.
I'll just say, before we start, we'll always have a habit of using acronyms and other things, so we will desperately try not to, but please just put up your hand if either Georgina and I slip into a GLD or something.
Absolutely.
Like that.
We've made a conscious effort to ensure that all the education acronyms that we tend to use have been moved, but absolutely, if there's anything that comes up, because we can slip into that quite easily, please do.
I can see an acronym key on the screen ahead of me, so let's continue on that vein.
Fantastic. So if we start with the early years, The good level of development is a sort of outcome that is at the end of reception. It's a summative assessment, essentially for pupils 4 to 5 years of age, and it covers a variety of areas. So the prime areas are communication and language, physical development, and PSED, which is personal, social, and emotional development, and then literacy, maths, understanding the world, and expressive arts and design. And again, a good news story, the outcomes for the good level of development across the local area have increased this year to 70.4%. So that's up by 3.5%, which is great news. And it gives children a really strong foundation for their learning, really, that they can then progress on to year 1, which is important in terms of those readiness to learn skills and those foundational skills that they can build on to the next stage. And we can move on to the phonics screening. So pupils are assessed in year 1 as part of a phonics screening check. It's a statutory assessment again, and it essentially evaluates pupils' knowledge and skills in terms of decoding and blending to an appropriate standard, essentially the building blocks to be able to read. And again, a good news story, so strong outcomes in phonics, and that continues a trend from last year. We're currently sitting in Hammersmith and Fulham at 82.8% of our cohort, and against national, which was 80.2%, so we're slightly up. And again, above London data as well. Okay. If we move on to Key Stage 2 attainment, and primary schools in Hammersmith and Fulham have performed strongly in this area. So Key Stage 2 attainment looks at SATs results in reading, writing and maths, and it looks at pupils achieving the expected standard and then pupils achieving a higher standard. So those are the two sort of areas that it focuses on. Within those pupils who are achieving the expected standard in Hammersmith and Fulham, the numbers were 74.9%. At the end of year 6, which was significantly above national at 61.3%. And then for the for our SEND pupils, so our pupils with SEND needs, again, a good news story that their expected attainment at the end of year 6 for reading, writing and maths were 42.4% against a national of 21.7%, so significantly increased. Then we can look at the sort of higher attainments, those pupils that are achieving what we would call greater depth, which is a scaled score of 110. And for our SEND pupils, or pupils with SEND needs, 5.2% of our pupils achieved the higher standard compared to 1.3% nationally. And then in the sort of wider cohort, performance at the greater depth for reading, writing and maths sat at 16.6% of pupils achieved this compared to national at 7.8%. So a good news story across our early years, our phonics at year 1 and our Key Stage 2 outcomes for the primary sector. If we move to the older children, so we'll start with Key Stage 4, and we can start by looking at 2 measures. So what we call Attainment 8 and Progress 8, and both data sets demonstrate excellent outcomes when compared to national figures. Attainment 8 is a measure of pupils' average grades across 8 subjects, whilst Progress 8 is around the performance in terms of the progress a pupil has made from their starting points across the secondary sector. So typically it's the grade at the end of Key Stage 2 that acts as the baseline measure and the progress that the young person has made from that baseline. And again, when we look at the data, so in Hammersmith and Fulham, I always caveat this by saying a positive score is a good score. That's what we're sort of aiming for. So 0.52 against a national of minus 0.02 in terms of Progress 8, and in terms of Attainment 8, a score of 55.9 compared to national of 46.2.
Do you just want to say what those horrible scores mean? Because I have to have this explained to me every single year, what Progress 8 and Attainment 8 scores actually mean when they're written out like that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So essentially anything above 0 is positive. That's what you're aiming for. So in terms of the score up, you're looking at the cumulative in terms of across the different 8 areas for Attainment 8. And in terms of progress, it's the measure from that starting point, so where the pupils came in at the start of secondary to the end of their year 11 and Key Stage 4 progress.
So the Attainment 8 comes from their 8 best subjects, which is actually their 10 best subjects because the English and Maths counts double. So you've got a maximum score of 90 for a pupil if they were to get 10 9s. So this basically means that the average grade across is 5.59 for the subjects, whereas nationally it's 4.6. The other thing to say is you don't need to worry about it next year, Councillor, because there's no Progress 8 for the next 2 years, because these are the young people that didn't do SATs during the COVID years in year 10 and 11 now.
That means I'm even less likely to remember in 3 years' time.
The main thing is it's a good news story for Hammersmith and Fulham, and certainly a positive score is what we look for, so which is great. And then we also, there's a variety of different measures that secondary schools are measured on, and if we move on to 2 additional sets, so one is the number of pupils, or the percentage of pupils that reach grade 5. So if we think of the outcomes at the end of Key Stage 4 from 1 to 9, what they're looking for is the percentage of pupils that essentially reach that grade 5 bracket. So that's one measure. In Hammersmith and Fulham, it's 64.4% against a national of 46.3%, which is great. And then we also look at EBAC entry. So the EBAC is, I always try and simplify how I explain this, but essentially pupils, they undertake yes. So it's the English baccalaureate. So absolutely. So essentially, it's the broad range of subjects that pupils can take part in. It covers English, maths, science, languages, and humanities, essentially. And the DFE aim, is to ensure that as many pupils as possible are entered for the EBAC. And certainly, we know that in 2010, the highest entry level for the EBAC entry was 40%. So the DFE are aiming for far higher than that. But that's where it stood. That's where it stood. Currently, in terms of our national data, it's 40.6%. But Hammersmith and Fulham are incredibly far beyond that, sitting at 69.2%. So it's exceptional performance in terms of entry. And you know, in some other areas, there may be a tendency not to put pupils through into things like humanities or some of the additional areas. That's not the case in Hammersmith and Fulham, which is great to know. And again, similarly strong profile for pupils with SEND needs at the end of Key Stage 4. So in each area, including the number of pupils with an educational health and care plan, achieving 9 to 4 in English and maths, the pupils that SEND support, achieving 9 to 4 in English and maths, the average attainment scores and the average progress scores, so in the progress scores, they are all significantly above national, or just above national for Hammersmith and Fulham, respectively. So, and I know you can see the slide deck, so really positive news story across the piece.
And this includes all pupils that attend all Hammersmith and Fulham schools, so it's as well as those at Key Stage 4, at our special schools and all other schools as well.
Indeed.
I wondered, I'll just interject briefly, Georgina and Peter, to ask, what's the relative ratio of our schools offering the baccalaureate versus A-levels? Is that relevant to the previous bit of data?
So the baccalaureate is...
I know that's readiness, what that data is showing.
So the baccalaureate is not a qualification at Key Stage 4, it's a suite of qualifications. So it's a slightly odd measure in that when they were looking to ensure that students were covering a broad and balanced curriculum, they wanted to see that they were doing all a subject from all of those 5 subject areas. So we don't have when we get to Key Stage 5, we don't have a huge number that do the IB, which is the International Baccalaureate, which is the Key Stage 5 qualification. All of our schools offer the A-levels. It's mainly private schools that offer the IB.
Okay, so how are they using baccalaureate? Why is that word used?
I don't know.
Essentially, the idea is that it's a broad range of subjects that pupils are encouraged to study.
Okay, so the first number is looking at English and Maths as the essential core performers, and it's looking at more spectrum performance of a broad range of subjects.
Absolutely.
Okay, understood. Cool, thank you. Did you want to come in? So did you have an interjection as well, or a question?
No, I was just trying to understand. So EBAC is just a few of the GCSE subjects they pick up, and they measure the performance across those subjects. Isn't that right? So maths, English, a language,
They measure the entry.
a history or geography, and so
the
they
national
pick up,
data measures the entry, not the performance.
Yes.
Because it's whether they're looking at whether they've had a broad and balanced curriculum, not necessarily whether they passed it.
Yeah, it's not really a degree or a qualification. It's just a performance measure across 5 subjects. And they pick them from the broader range of GCSEs, and it depends on what's on the offer.
Indeed, and the idea is to move away from a narrowed curriculum so that it's a broad offer, that pupils, a broad suite of qualifications that pupils are accessing.
So all schools in H&F will offer that, and they just measure,
absolutely, the percentage are entered.
So it may be that a pupil doesn't do a language and then they wouldn't be entered for the baccalaureate. It may be that a young person doesn't do history or geography, which means that they're not doing a humanities, because when it was designed, humanities didn't include RE or citizenship or other subjects that people might also call humanities. So it is a slightly odd measure.
Yes, but has it been updated now? So the humanities only now consists of geography and history, doesn't consist of RE, the PSHE, everything else that the schools in H&F offer, they're not included.
That's correct.
Not for entry, yeah.
Okay. And that needs updating properly.
Who would like to, who's got the hand up? Nandini.
Send key stage 4 performance, do they also take that back?
Indeed, yes, absolutely. So it's accessible to all pupils. It's not limited depending on whether you're a SEND pupil or not. They would still have an equal offer to be able to access that, indeed.
And again, this question is not so important, but just for my own curiosity, you also take special schools and mainstream schools and combine the data, do you?
Indeed, yes. So if there are pupils that are special schools that are taking GCSEs, they would be included in the data.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think we interrupted you, Georgina.
That's fine. No,
interjected
all relevant questions.
The gentler version.
They're absolutely fine. If we move on to Key Stage 5 performance, we use what we call APS to give us an understanding of A-level performance in terms of locally as well as nationally. APS stands for average point score. So essentially, it's a measure of students' overall performance. Essentially, some points are allocated to each grade, and then the average of that is then taken to produce an APS score. So again, A-level performance is above national for our A-level outcomes, and the average grade is what we would call a B-, and it's slightly lower than national in terms of the vocational element, but just slightly, so 24.2 against 28.1. Okay, and then moving away from sort of the educational outcomes, we'll speak more broadly about what's happening in terms of education. So I'll start with attendance. Increasing attendance and reducing persistent absence remains a priority for us as a service and as a local area. There's lots of multi-agency, multidisciplinary work taking place across the borough, and work is underway, including the work of our school attendance officers, we call them SASOs, to support schools in the work and work in this area. So it's an ongoing way forward. Moving into sort of elective home education and children missing in education. We have a team in Hammersmith and Fulham that looks into this area. We call them the ACE team. There's certainly local processes and robust systems in place for these key groups to ensure oversight around their educational provision and keeping a monitor of the numbers and the figures. You'll see from the data that it fluctuates over time with a sort of high in 2021 of EHE pupils and 2022 of children missing in education. But you can see that both of those numbers have reduced in terms of current dates. With currently 152 EHE children and 9 pupils with an electively home educated with an EHCP, and 6 pupils who are children missing in education. And essentially, just so we're really clear on the terms, Elective home education is where a pupil is being educated typically within the home, but it's been opted out of the school system and they are school age. Children missing in education is where they are of compulsory school age, but they're not registered with a school or a setting. So you can see the numbers are quite low and they are very heavily monitored in Hammersmith and Fulham.
I'm just going to, just because this is so statistically dense, just when people's kind of like curiosity is piqued, I will just go to them for this item. So Councillor Khan.
Yeah, so my question is about the elective home education numbers, and I'm just seeing a spike again. And I don't understand why there's a spike, because I can understand that COVID must have caused a spike in 2021. Why are we heading towards another spike in 2024? Like, why are the numbers going up? Why are people pulling their kids out of school?
Without getting into a more complicated conversation, we're not actually allowed to ask. So the way that this process works is set in legal sort of rules that the present kind of government are attempting to change the policy around. So we can't give you exactly accurate information why a person has chosen to electively home educate.
But there must be some understanding of why there's a trend towards it. I mean, obviously you can't give me personal reasons for each case, but there must be an understanding for why people are pulling their kids out of school. And why is this, there's more people opting for elective home education? And then how do we monitor those children's welfare and their education is on track? How do we do that?
Absolutely.
So I just come in. So I don't want to hypothesize on reasons that I can't give you facts or evidence for. And I think we've presented here previously on how we track and monitor the safeguarding of the young people who are electively home educated. So we use the same process that we've used throughout. What we've done over recent time is increase the provision so that we can continue to deliver the service that we do.
I will just to briefly interject, this is a national trend. So it's really interesting, but there are several factors involved in there to do with work and childcare and all that, but it is a national trend. Did anyone?
Well, I was just going to say that it's strange enough, because about a year ago, my daughter was going to take.
Oh, you're.
No, there's nothing. No, it was because a misunderstanding of topics discussed in the school. She was so angry she was going to take her child out, but the school worked very, very well with my daughter and she calmed down. But I mean, it can be for any reason. I just thought I'd add that. Thank you.
Councillor Sanderson, do you want to come in?
No, thank you very much for sharing the personal anecdote. I think, yeah, as you say, it can be for a whole variety of reasons, but we are seeing a national trend. It was a big spike over COVID, which there was a lot of work that went into trying to get kids back into schools, because obviously, I mean, my personal view is that they are best placed in schools in almost all circumstances for all the safeguarding, welfare, education, attainment, socialisation, language development reasons that you would expect. But it's something that we keep a really, really steely eye on. I think we are a local authority that took the DfE to court to try and challenge to get to to get to meet with the families and work with them to make sure that children were getting the best possible outcomes. We are keeping a keen eye on any future developments about the schools bill, about what that might report, because there's a mad situation at the moment where local authorities don't have to keep a register of kids who are home educated. We try very hard to make sure that we've got one, but it may be that in local authorities up and down the country, there are children who aren't known about because children don't have to report, don't have to come forward. So we try very hard to make sure that we are paying close attention to this cohort. It's something that we talk about a lot, think about a lot, and I think welcome the continued scrutiny on it. Thank you.
Indeed. And another area that we keep a very close eye on is exclusions. So, and I know it's lots of figures and numbers, so I won't labour too much on this point, but when we look at permanent exclusions and suspension rates, they are both significantly lower than the national levels, and it is an area that we continue to monitor, both against London and against national, and keep a close eye on and work with the schools in this area. And finally, if I move on to sort of our priorities, so it's great being part of the school effectiveness team because we work in so many different areas and can work alongside many different teams and many different disciplines. But we've got a number of different priorities for sort of 2024. Attendance remains up there and remains a key focus, including increasing attendance and reducing persistent absence. The team also looks at increasing post-16 participation. We work quite closely with the various teams within the local area and within the council to do that. We're very much contributing to the industrial strategy. We have a careers leaders network, which meets regularly, shares opportunities both locally and nationally, and keeps feeding in so that the upskilling our sixth form heads and our career leads in terms of what opportunities are out there and what's happening locally around the industrial strategy and the pathway bonds. We very much work closely with our governors and our school leaders. We essentially, in terms of finances, we know that's a key area for schools. So we work with our finance team around exploring long-term financial stability. We very much do the quality assurance around AP in the local area. So that falls under our team. And we work very closely with our commissioned AP and looking at how we can support the transition of our young people, our vulnerable young people, into long-term sustained destination placements. It's a key area, and we've had lots of success in that area that we continue to work on, continue to embed, and continue to support that cohort. There's a degree of work taking place in terms of supporting inclusion in our schools and workforce development in this area, our SENCOs, our school leaders, and ensuring that there is a shared understanding around inclusive practice going forward. We also do a variety of different streams and pathways around climate education. We already have quite an established body of work around this area, and actually now that it's sort of gained traction in terms of DFE and the outcomes expected from September 2025, we're actually sharing our practice that's been cultivated over the years that we've been working in this area with other local authorities that are sort of picking up this body of work. And just to ensure that we continue to support our schools and to help young people within their walls thrive, and that we've got a good workforce offer as well. The relationships that we have with schools are very important to us. We do support, we do challenge, and it's a continued piece of work going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's very dense, but very interesting. And my gosh, the measures and metrics of performance data are impenetrable from DFE. So, but I think we've all felt like I was back at school briefly there, getting some statistics on. Okay, any other, well, I know we kind of had questions as we go through, so any other, Marie, would you like to ask a question? Do you want to come up to, well, you can use Sarah, this easy one here. Yeah, go for it. You look very fragrant, Marie.
I am so proud of Hammersmith and Fulham with the education they are given to each and every child in our schools and in the community. It shows the work that is being done. And I know sometimes we get very negative information from parents who I usually say, would you be in a classroom? They don't have an answer. But my question is, last week we had the conferences for teachers. Now, where does school readiness fit in to our curriculum? Because they spoke about it. They spoke about oral health, mental health. So how are we, as an education, is going to focus on these as priorities?
It's a great question.
That's my bit.
And we do quite a lot of work around health promotion. I think on reflection, we maybe don't toot our own horn enough around this area. We've worked very closely with the public health team. We have an oral health steering group, and we work with the public health team and school nurses on asthma-friendly schools. And we're currently working on some protocols around diabetes and support for schools in that area. We are looking at healthy eating. There's been some guidance that's been released around healthy eating in the early years, and school readiness is a key aspect. So although I tend to do reception and up, nurseries and up in terms of schools, we have a really robust early years team that have been working with us on school readiness and ensuring those skills, those foundational skills, are embedded, one, before pupils come into school and start school life, but actually once they're in, what more can we do for those pupils that maybe still have some way to go? So certainly health promotion is on the agenda, and we work very closely with our public health colleagues in that area. And there's definitely still more to do, but it's certainly not, it's certainly an area that we're continuing to work on.
Wearing my hat as a governor, the other concern is about toilet training. How are we going to be focusing that on the early years too, because I know personally that children are coming into school not toilet trained. So where does that fit in to your part of your priority?
Again, yes, it's a national trend to some extent, and we know that certainly in the media there's been coverage around this area. We the team run toilet training sessions for parents and carers in the early years, but it's also an area that we've been looking at in terms of that readiness for school. So we don't expect that pupils come into school toilet trained. That's not an expectation, but we obviously will work with our school partners and our parents to see what we can do to help pupils get there before they start school.
But not least, let us make sure we retain our teachers in HNF. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for caring of your compliments. Councillor Afzal Khan.
I just have a small question regarding Key Stage 3. So I've seen no data for Key Stage 3, and I'm just wondering, is there no SATs, no attainment data for Key Stage 3?
So it's a really pertinent question, and certainly the idea has been flirted with, I know, over consecutive governments and consecutive years, but at the moment there is no externally published data at Key Stage 3. Obviously, schools have to keep a very tight monitor on how pupils are doing on entry. You'll find that in addition to SATs results, they will take their own tests and they will continually assess in a sensible way, not over assessing pupils throughout their time with them, because you want to ensure that any pupil that needs additional support, that support is given early. And so the only way to do that is to ensure there's a good understanding, good assessment systems in place to understand where pupils are on their journey throughout the school life. So there's no externally published results, but certainly schools will do their own monitoring and tracking.
But then the responsibility lies with the individual schools in a way. And there's a whole 5-year period where from the baseline testing at Key Stage 2 to the GCSE results and attainment at Key Stage 4, there's just 5 years where there's no data. And if the council or if local authorities could step in to help, there's no way of knowing how we could help because there's no Key Stage 3 publicly data.
We definitely keep a close eye in terms of how schools are progressing, but you're right that it's certainly down to individual schools. But if you look at the Progress 8 measures, that gives you an understanding of how pupils are doing from that baseline to across their time in secondary schools. It's one of the reasons why we don't just look at attainment at the end of year 11. We look at the progress across that body of time as well. Absolutely. And so far, the data is suggesting that schools are doing really well in that area. They certainly, you'd want to track. I don't know how I can convey it, but you definitely would want to track how pupils are doing because it's in the school's best interest to ensure that their pupils get the support they need as early as possible.
Great. Nandini.
I mean, just to clarify, these are Hammersmith and Fulham residents in Hammersmith and Fulham schools, or just Hammersmith and Fulham schools data?
So this is Hammersmith and Fulham schools data.
Not necessarily Hammersmith and Fulham residents.
So the way the DFE tables are organised, so it's done by school location. So, for example, some of our schools have a large number of people that come, pupils that come from out of borough, and equally we have a large number of residents that go out of borough as well because of the shape of the borough, etc. So, say for example, if we took Hurlingham Academy, for example, which is in the far south, they'll have some people that cross over the bridge from Wandsworth, some that come from Kensington, Chelsea, but it's the school's data that it's the pupils in year 11 that year in that school, which the data is included. I don't think there's any way that we could get an accurate total for Hammersmith and Fulham residents. It's something that I've thought about, but I don't even quite know how I'd start.
One more question, not just related to the report. I think a few CPACs ago, we had a discussion on falling school rolls, especially in the south. Is that still a problem, or are we okay with that?
Yes, is the answer to that. It's still a problem. So we've seen the published data shows a 2-year significant decrease. We'll see how things progress for September 25.
I just wondered if Councillor Sanderson wanted to come in on her favourite subject.
Sure, yeah. I think everyone's sick of me talking about this. Yeah, it is a London nationwide global trend, decreasing birth rates. At the moment, we're not seeing those in secondary schools necessarily, although there is a decrease in numbers. Yeah, continues to be a problem. Would love it if we have more kids in the borough. So we have got various things that we're looking at to try and make sure that we've got more families. We've got a new family housing strategy that's launching to try and have more family homes. But yeah, it's a very, very live issue for, we're in a better place than some other local authorities, but in a worse place than others for a whole variety of reasons, which I can bore at length about. But it will continue to be a very live topic, and it's not a trend that looks like it's going to improve. So children's leads are lobbying government about anything that we can do, but ultimately it comes down to the fact that we've got too many school places and not enough children. So at some point, we're going to have some difficult conversations about the future of some of those schools. So, but we will bring that back when we are at that point. But it's going to
Nothing short of macroeconomic.
Yeah.
Profoundly hard to reverse the trend.
Yeah, there's been a 20% reduction in under fives in the last 10 years in London. So it's significant. That's 1 in 5 children that were there 10 years ago are no longer there. So it's significant.
Yes, Councillor Sullivan, go for it.
Just one more question. So I'm looking at some of these schools results, and some of the schools results, the Progress 8 and Attainment 8 are far below the national. So are we also tracking if they're consistently falling below the national numbers, and then maybe working with those schools or coming up with strategies to help those schools get better results? I'm looking at Appendix 1 and looking at some of the schools really fall far below the national Progress 8 levels. Appendix 1, the Hammersmith and Fulham GCSE results.
So I think you've got all versus one borough. So this is where, it's always worth an explainer on these kinds of.
So with the individual school data, it's worth bearing in mind that all of our schools are academies. So they're not necessarily, we're not the responsible body. The responsible body is the DFE. We only actually have one school that's is below national. The others are potentially the special schools, which is why their data would be very different.
Okay. And so if you see that over a number of years, they're falling below the national levels, then would we be helping them or assisting them or guiding them in some way? Because I know that we have a school leadership cohort as well that help the schools help each other, guide each other, and share good practice advice.
So our secondary head teacher network and other networks is very, very strong. We've not seen the issue, so it's not something that we would offer support, but it would be something that they would have to specifically buy in. The recent government has brought in a new program called the RISE program, which is a school improvement service. But that would sit alongside us. So if there was a school that they identified and we identified, we would have a conversation with them about how we would look at providing that support, whether it was something that was commissioned from us and something the team could provide, or whether it would be resourced externally. But we're pretty confident in what our schools do.
I think this is classic. It's actually been, it's so statistically dense. I wonder whether it's worth having a kind of like, it's not even dummies guide for this. Is actually quite complex, right? Just an explainer. Because I'm wondering when people, if these are the numbers looked at by parents choosing schools, it could quite easily be quite confusing. I wonder whether we have something that translates through some quite complex statistics to try and explain, or is this more internal
Councillor, it sounds
reporting?
like you're talking about a report card, which is something that has been in the news, so I won't go any further with that. In terms of the academies themselves, it would be up to them to really put the data, etc., together. We're looking at how we support our maintained primaries with kind of clear data sets, etc. But when parents looking at schools, they tend to look at a whole other wider set of issues rather than just the results.
They're not looking at things like Appendix 1. That's what you're telling me.
I hope
no.
not.
This is, yeah, okay, right. We're on the hyper nerdy here. Okay.
And just to add, if there was a particular parent or carer that was interested in individual schools, there are tools online, such as Compare the Schools, where you can go in and look at an individual school and look at some of the statistics in isolation if they were particularly interested. So there are ways, although this has been produced for the sort of group here, there are ways that parents would be able to access that information online that's accessible to all.
Yeah, fine. I asked it, in which case I've asked a slightly wrong question, but got it understood. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other final thoughts? No. Is there something online? Oh, we have a question from Nadia. Do you want to relay it, Debbie, and your...
Yeah, I can. I have forwarded to you as well.
Okay, great. Sorry, I think it might take me a little second to get my email up. Do you want to take the mic, Debbie? Have a little cameo.
Sure. Nadia want to express her thanks for an excellent presentation on school performance and the enrichment activities for the children in the virtual school. She would like to ask whether we provide any mechanisms to promote and facilitate peer-to-peer support and encouragement for look after children, whereby they may have ways to connect, given their shared experience outside of school.
I'm really sorry, we're probably not the best people to answer that because Sarah's not here, but I think, so I know that they do connect I think the enrichment activities that Sarah was presenting is exactly that type of program where the young people come together and they have those conversations and so on. So I've heard about the kind of activity trips they've done in the summer where they've all gone away for a week and had those opportunities to discuss and come together as a group. So I think that's exactly how it's designed. Jackie, I don't know if you want to...
And we also have a hub for older young people who are care experienced where they can meet and socialise. It's not, but the younger groups, we do it through foster carers as well. But we also encourage our young people to be connecting with their peers in the community.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. I was hoping to meet a tight 90, but over by 4 minutes, that's okay. Oh, we got one more.
I just wanted to... Oh, sorry, do you want to...
Yes.
I just wanted to formally put on record my thanks to Georgina and the team. When I say it's the team is very small. So I think just to put on record my thanks to Georgina and everything, all the work that she does, mainly with the primaries, but also with the secondaries as well, when asked in terms of a wide number of areas, whether it be school performance or cleaning teeth or anything it might be. So thank you.
Love it. Oh, smile, you're on camera, Georgina. That was really very surreptitious, Jackie. No one saw you doing that. Yeah, just for the online audience, we've got Jackie just papping us there. But we've already consented to all of it, so you can go for it, really, Jackie, not breaking any rules. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you. Also just want to say thank you. It's a huge amount of work that goes into condensing all of this, as well as making sure our schools are all on a continuous improvement journey. So thank you to you and your team for all of this. My second bit is to say formally congratulations to Parents Active for their Civic Honours Award, which they got a couple of weeks ago. And if you will indulge me, I'm going to read what the nomination said. It's very brief, I promise. Parents Active has empowered parents with children and young adults with disabilities for over 20 years and have been instrumental in introducing many changes in the borough. They became a co-production forum for the borough after the Children and Families Act 2014, our favourite act, campaigned and co-produced Stephen Wiltshire Centre, fundraised for and installed wheelchair-friendly swings and roundabouts in both Wormhole and Ravenscourt Park, and lobbied for a transitions team, now in place, to support parents and their young person prepare for adulthood. Parents Active is committed to ensuring authentic co-production and works hard to ensure the voice of parents informs and influences policies and service development. So thank you so much to Parents Active. And congratulations again.
Awesome, well done.
It is our 25th year, actually. We are entering into our 20th, and we will be having a 25th birthday celebration. So it's quite, and I think I've been part of CPAC now since 2014, so 10 years and counting. I think I may hand over. I'm getting a bit jaded, but hopefully, yeah. Thank you for the award, actually. Thanks, Hammersmith and Fulham.
Thanks so much, Nandini. Amazing, thank you. Great, super interesting meeting. I've got some numbers to think about, but thank you for explaining those. Yeah, it's complex stuff. Thank you for explaining. Thank you everyone for being here, for your questions. Thanks for cruising in at the 11th hour, Nadia, with the little question to keep us on our toes. And the next meeting is on the 30th of June, and we'll see you then. Thank you very much for joining.